Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is season 2, episode 6 of the Unofficial Official Story. I'm Dwayne, and I guess I'm the class clown, but I feel like I'm more the skeptic.
You are the skeptic, and I'm Koji, and I am the believer. Well, no, I always say I'm the agnostic, so I believe, but I also don't believe because I don't think everything could possibly be true. This is a podcast where we tell you the official story. We look at the paranormal, conspiracies, unexplained phenomena, cryptids, and true crime. And by the end, we'll tell you what really maybe happened.
Yes, in this episode, we're asking the question, who killed Tupac? But first, let's introduce our guest, my man, 40 grand, Ruben Paul. I'll read this even though I know Rube, but Ruben is an accomplished comedian, an actor.
I'm a writer also, though.
And a writer, yeah. We can talk about that, yeah. He has performed on Comedy Central, The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson, Lopez Tonight, Showtime's special Russell Peters Presents, B.E.T's Comic View, Comics Unleashed, and HBO's Def Comedy Jam, to name a few. Ruben has toured extensively and collaborated with some of the biggest names in comedy and entertainment, including Jamie Foxx, George Lopez, Cedric The Entertainer, and most recently, Russell Peters. He's done it all and traveled the world, too.
As an actor, Ruben has been in films such as Deliver Us from Eva with actor, rapper LL Cool J and Gabrielle Union, and Ground Control with Kiefer Sutherland. Ruben has also had great guest starring television roles on The Jamie Foxx Show, a reoccurring role in Pensacola Wings of Gold, and a regular cast member on B.E.T's hidden camera show, Socially Offensive Behavior with D.L. Hughley.
Well, lots of shows that aren't on air anymore.
I pulled that from your website.
What's good, Rube?
Man, all is well, dude. All is well. Happy to be here. You know, staying busy, doing what I do.
That's what's up. And Deliver Us from Eva, that was a while back when you did was that the one you had to stutter? Or
Yeah, that's the one that
you
had
killed that, man.
Yeah, it was great, man. It's just funny in this business when you you just never know what is going to resonate with the audience sometimes. So
Right.
you just keep going. But that was one of the roles that I played that, you know, I'd be somewhere and someone just starts snapping their fingers, go, "Hey, man, you the stuttering dude." And I'm like, yeah. And even to this day, no matter that was shit. I mean, I can't even remember how long ago that was, 15 years ago or so.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's a device people use, stuttering, and you have to play it just so.
Yeah.
Like, because you know what I mean? It's one of those things you can kind of overdo, and I think you just crushed it. It just was right on point.
I had a friend that I grew up with who stuttered, so I just did him. So that's why it was really easy for me to do. You know, even in the audition, you know. And that was one of the few auditions that before I walked out of the room, I knew I got it. It was up between me and one other person, and it was actually a big name.
Right? Can we say who it was?
They wanted Rick Fox for that role. Remember Rick Fox? They used to play for?
Right. He's too smooth. I know Rick Fox too. We studied with the same acting coach.
And before I walked out, they're like, "Yo," we said, just to be straight up with you. We went out to Rick Fox for this. We don't know if he's going to do it.
Right.
But after seeing you, if he doesn't do it, you'll get the part.
Oh, that's what's up.
Yeah.
That's what's up. Shout out to Rick, though. He's solid.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Great basketball player and a really good actor, too.
He probably doesn't even, and I've never really brought that story up to him or whatever, but yeah. But I was right for that part. He wasn't.
No, you killed it. And stuttering is like being drunk.
Yeah.
It's like if I played a drunk person, it's not going to be.
Oh, yeah, because you don't drink.
I don't drink. Right.
Did you know you always wanted to be a comedian?
Yeah, I instinctually, yes. But I didn't make the decision till I was in college, and I was a theater major, and I was taking all these acting classes, and it was actually my acting teacher that was like, "Hey, have you ever thought of doing stand-up?" And I was
wow.
What do I suck at this? Like, she was like, "No." She was like, "I think you're a really talented actor, but you just have a comedic sensibility. Like you take lines that weren't intended to be funny and make them funny, or you find the humor in things." And I told her, I was like, actually, I was thinking about doing it. I really didn't know how to get started. And then it kind of took off from there. And
as a comic, like we said, we didn't have a writer. And you said, I'm a writer too.
Yeah.
And that's just it. You're like a writer. On stage, you're a writer, actor, director.
Yeah.
Because you write the jokes, you act them out.
Absolutely.
And you kind of direct the scene, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's funny you said that because I get two diametrically opposed compliments, and I take them both graciously.
Yeah.
But sometimes they reflect the person more than they reflect me, right?
100, always.
Because some people say, you're a great writer.
Yeah.
Man, you're writing. And those people they in their minds they're better performers than me.
Yes.
So they have to give me the writing.
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
And then some people say like that's if I'm at like the haha,
yeah.
right? But if I go to like a hipster room, they'll say, "Oh, your performance."
Well, it's funny because
and you're so friendly and likable because they need to be the smart writers, so they got to give me that part of it.
It's just funny that you say that because being a writer should never feel like a good writer should never feel like it's a diss in the comedy world. But sometimes people say that to imply that, hey man, you should be a writer, not a performer. That's that little dig, like, oh man.
Sometimes the host is helping you out.
Yes.
Right. Other times he's cueing them to not like you.
Yeah.
It depends on who the host is. Because sometimes he'll go, "Oh, this next guy, y'all gotta listen."
Yep.
You're done.
Y'all, man, I'm telling you, this dude's hilarious, but y'all gotta pay attention. Really? They have to pay attention? I'm not dynamic enough to make them pay attention?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, but here's, like you said, it reflects them more than it reflects you. I mean, we do what we do. As I've been doing it longer and longer and longer, I pay less attention to anything anybody says.
Right.
Unless it's a valid critique and it's coming from somebody that, is qualified to give you that critique.
And you run with the biggest dudes in the whole thing, which
Absolutely.
means they respect you.
Yeah.
And what's that been like? Because I mean, you've
well, for me,
with Lopez, with Ced, whoever you run with, like.
Well, here's
guys.
the irony, and I don't know if me and you have ever talked about this. To be in a position where you collaborate with some of these guys and write, to me, it's still, I don't want to say surprising, but it's one of those things where the people that you're working with are the people you idolized.
Right.
And now they're coming to you, asking you for your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I know sometimes, earlier on years ago, I remember George asking me something, and I was like, I learned all this from you, from watching you. You know what I mean? But I think to be a good writer and to learn from, like, you can learn from anybody on any level.
Absolutely.
Like, you can learn from open micers, you can learn from that, because you could watch them and go, oh, I see exactly what they did wrong. I used to do that, or I've done that before.
Absolutely.
And I think when you're working with some of the best, there's things that you can learn and incorporate into what you do.
Right.
And that's always been important to me. So to work with these guys and to be able to have me as the filter of everything that I've learned is kind of cool because I have a different perspective.
Right.
And I think one of my gifts is to be able to see comedy from the audience's perspective.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, it seems like with these dudes, you're like the guy who is their peer. At this point, you're their peer.
Yeah.
But also, you know what it's like to be in the world, and for them, it's like they don't know what it's like to be in the world anymore. So you're like their anchor sometimes, in a sense.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And tell me about the LA scene. I'm always intrigued by people that started comedy in LA because I didn't start here, and it seemed like it's real hard to do. So what was it like back in the day compared to now? And I think that'll lead us to the topic too, actually.
Well, biggest compliment I've ever gotten. Well, one of the biggest compliments was years ago. Chappelle was like, "You started doing comedy in LA?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Man, it's crazy how good you are for somebody who started doing comedy in LA." And I took that as a compliment. I didn't even take it as a slight back then, but when you go to New York and just the amount of stage time you can get, anybody who does stand-up will tell you that the more stage time you get, the better you'll be if you're taking the stage time seriously.
Right.
So to be able to do multiple sets in a night in and night out, there's just really no substitute for that. And I think when I started out here in LA, the comedy scene I started in was much different. Like when I started doing comedy, I was doing only Black clubs in LA. And there was a number of bar shows and nightclub shows that would happen. So I was getting to 3 spots sometimes in a night starting out, even though, most people weren't aware of these shows in these rooms. They're very, comedy's very segregated in LA also. Well, I think comedy's segregated everywhere in general. But for me, being able to do those spots, do those shows, and then when I started branching off doing Latino rooms, and then I started doing the white rooms, and I don't want to say mainstream, because if they're gonna call them black rooms and Latino rooms and Asian rooms, let's call the other ones what they are. They're white shows. So when I started doing all of the shows, then the number of spots I was doing just increased. Like I'd be at the Laugh Factory, then I'd drive to Montebello and do tortillas, and then I would drive, to Long Beach and do whatever bar or restaurant show. Then I would drive to all these places, so it was just a part of my hustle.
But like, what was the hip hop scene as it related to comedy, and what was the crossover? And were you there for some of that?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And what's funny is, like, sometimes when I hear like old cuts, old hip hop songs, it reminds me of a specific year in comedy. Because whatever the hottest song is, that's what the comedian is going to come up to. So if and that's a real black room thing also.
Right.
Because, when you go in there, like, all right, you next. And you go to DJ and be like, yo, man, play, you got that new song by Dr. Dre. It's like Dre and Snoop.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, G-Thing? Yeah, play that.
Wow.
I mean, these are when the songs are first coming out and hitting them, because in a black room, again, you want every advantage you can get. So if you start off with the right song, it puts the audience in the right mood, which gives you an opportunity
to get your... But the song can't be too hot, because then they don't want the song to stop.
Yeah.
And then it's like, shut up, we want to hear the song.
Well, so you listen to hip hop. Tell me who your favorite rappers are.
West Coast or just in general?
In general. I mean, is there a difference, first of all?
Yeah, well...
Koji's a big West Coast guy.
I'd say this. I used to get a lot of flack when I was younger, because most of the artists that I liked were East Coast artists.
Oh, man.
But that's because that's where hip-hop started. That's what you listen to. Even being in L.A. and you turned on K-Day, it wasn't a lot of West Coast artists on K-Day. K-Day was the AM station that was really the hip-hop hub for the West Coast when I was growing up. From, Jay-Z to Nas, Biggie, Snoop. Who do I like? I like Game.
So far, it's all East Coast and one guy from Mississippi.
So here are the facts. With any suspicious murder, we can always count on one suspect to be consistently turned to the government.
Of course.
Of course, yeah. Of course, yeah.
One theory suggests that the CIA killed Tupac for using his music to give a voice to street gangs. Another says the Jewish Defense League killed Tupac to cover up their hip-hop extortion racket, which I don't know about that. Well, in New York, we have the hip-hop police. They extort hip-hop artists in a sense.
Yeah.
But they're really trying to get the dudes that the hip-hoppers hang out around. Mm-hmm. And they use the hip-hoppers to get to them. But I never heard this one, because to me, it would seem like the Jewish people involved would be on the production side, and they wouldn't want their cash cow to...
I mean, it's anti-Semitic. It's always...
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, that whole thing about the Jewish Defense League is most likely related to some anti-Semitic plot, to paint Jewish people as villains.
However, the central figure in the debate is Suge Knight and the Crips gang, known for being pit against Tupac. Knight was coincidentally behind the wheel that fateful night and escaped with no bullet wounds. When the word got out about the murder, much of the hate was pinned on Knight.
Yes. Now, these might be a bit of a stretch. Maybe a better question to ponder would be, is Tupac really dead?
So Suge was a blood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, well, you know what? I'll let you guys get into it.
No. Tell us what you think.
Suge was a blood. Snoop was a Crip.
Yeah. And I think, during that time, it's almost like I remember it vividly, because that was during the whole Pac Biggie feud, East Coast, West Coast thing. And it just started becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, with magazines like The Source and Vibe and all that, having all these covers. And you got to understand, East Coast had such a stranglehold on hip hop at the time. And then it's like the West Coast just came and just started dropping hit after hit after hit after hit, where we were on the West Coast, we were dominating the charts.
Absolutely. In fact, Biggie was part of like stopping that flow, or like he was trying to dam it up, because before even Big had said, I want to sell records like Snoop.
Yeah.
Like Nas's whole thing was like overlooked, because at that point, the West was winning. Early 90s.
West was winning, and I think Nas was a good writer.
Yeah, right.
As a callback, you know what I mean?
Right.
Nas, you're a really good writer.
Right.
You know what I mean? But he was respected as a lyricist, but never really had
not for the
commercial
clubs.
hits and playing in the clubs and stuff like that. And you got to understand, being in the midst of it and not really being, I was, even back then I was really, conscious and pro-Black. And, so Dwayne can relate to, sometimes Black people, we feel like we're battling two sides. Our college educated, being articulate, and then just the hood side of just where we come from, how the music is, what it represents. And I think for me, gangster rap was what we were trying to avoid. Because there was so much violence and everything, then you kind of didn't want it. But the music was so dope, and the stories were so true and relatable.
We did an episode. We had Razzcast, one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah.
And we talk about this other theory that
Razzcast actually grew up in my neighborhood.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
And this is about, and he's dope. And we talked about, did the record company promote gangster rap on purpose? Because it all goes from like 91 is like De La Soul, Arrested Development, Beads, Black Power,
Public Enemy,
to
like shooting you.
To like, just cracking. But that was a response to the positivity was like, hey guys, we were trying to pick ourselves up. But the gangster stuff was also really happening in the streets. So just a reflection of what was happening. It wasn't like people weren't killing themselves, killing each other, and crack wasn't a thing.
And I think that was around the time the phrase "keeping it real" came into public.
Yes. Now, Speech, if you're listening from Arrested Development, I think you did keep it real as well.
Yes, not saying that they didn't.
Even if Mr. Wendell didn't exist.
It was just one of those things where, it didn't mean that the rest of them weren't keeping it real, but gangster rap's whole thing was like, we're just reporting what we're seeing in the streets on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
That was their reality. But to answer your question, did the record companies, push that? I do think so. If we're talking about a conspiracy, I think a lot of times when it's music about Black people harming each other, and it definitely has an influence on the youth, whether we want to say it or not. And I know the excuse is, well, when you watch an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, does that make you violent? And it's, well, if Arnold Schwarzenegger was wearing a blue rag and his pants was sagging, and he was in an Impala, it might.
and it does make you violent. That's why like 10-year-olds beat up the 8-year-old brother doing moves they saw on WWF.
Exactly.
Like but let's look at the scene and the shady circumstances in which Tupac died.
Tupac was known to have worn a bulletproof vest everywhere he went. However, the one day he doesn't, coincidentally, is the day he dies. Even more concerning is comparing the height and weight statistics of the mortuary record versus Tupac's driver's license. There seems to be a major discrepancy. On his driver's license, he's listed as 5'10", 168, but the mortuary records state him as 6 feet and 215 pounds. I mean, I didn't know bullets could be that heavy. It sounds like the classic bait and switch with a body, no?
Well, I mean...
that's a little crazy.
I mean, let's just be honest. I'm 180 on my driver's license.
Right.
Do you think shorter people do not give themselves a couple of more inches on their driver's license?
That's true. But no, it said he was taller in the autopsy, and he was 25, so he couldn't have been, I don't think it was 215, unless he was just swole.
Yeah, no, he wasn't that big yet.
No.
A famous photograph circulated around, allegedly depicted Tupac and Suge Knight minutes before the incident. I think that's the one in the car.
Yeah.
However, the photo was dated September 8th, the day after the shooting. Some say in his album, Ain't Hard to Find, he might even be commenting on this occurrence. I heard rumors that I died murdered in cold blood. Traumatized pictures of me in my final states. Mama cried, but that was the fiction. Some coward got the story twisted. See, Tupac can make that rhyme, actually. So maybe it was a simple camera error, or maybe Tupac is alive.
In Tupac's last album, The Don Illuminati. There you go. That's like my favorite song, by the way. The 7-Day Theory, he changed his onstage name to Machiavelli. This leads us to the Machiavelli theory that, like Machiavelli, Tupac faked his own death. He might have dropped this hint in the album. Sometimes it has been a great moment. Sorry, I'm not going to do the Tupac rap, okay? It's probably better for the world. Sometimes it's been a great moment while the fight is going on to disseminate words that pronounce the enemies. Oh, actually, this is not Tupac. This is Machiavelli. Sorry,
yeah.
let me. I was like, wait, this doesn't sound like a rap. Enemies captain to be dead or to have been conquered by another part of the army. Many times this has given victory to him who used it.
Now, I will say, whether he's alive or dead, have you ever negotiated with someone and the negotiation is done? And then, like, because you think the negotiation is done, you exhale and relax. And then they throw in one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
They usually get that thing.
It's like car dealerships.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like car dealerships. And so part of like, oh, I don't have to fight this guy anymore. And then, like, comedically, it's like, and I'm going to finish the research here. Comedically, it's like when they tell you you're not going up next, because before you know you're going to go on stage, right?
Yeah.
You get, especially if it's a crazy crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did the Laugh Factory a few weeks, maybe a month ago, Sunday night. I'm thinking this is like Sunday used to be a clean show.
Yeah.
So I show up and I'm like, that guy's not clean.
Mm-hmm.
This is weird. There's a guy on stage with a washcloth, like a little towel. You know, like a towel. Like you see a black dude with a towel.
Yeah.
That's
What does that mean?
It's fucking ghetto, is what it means.
Okay.
Like it's a sweat towel, like a little.
I never usually snort when I laugh, but that's hilarious. That is ghetto. That's what that means.
Because I said, he had a sweat towel. Oh boy. And he's funny, but he's being dirty. And I realized, fuck, this is a black show. It's switched.
Yeah.
It's fine. I did fine. But I had to get I had to think of what I was going to do and reassess the situation. And so what happens is they say, you're not going on. You exhale. Then they go, you're next. Mentally, you're not, even pinch hitters, even in soccer, everybody gets a little bit of warning. Hey, you're about to.
Yeah.
So there is a tactic where I think it's effective to like tell someone the fight is over, but it's not over. That's what that means.
Yeah.
Some other miscellaneous information supports this. In September 2015, David Myers, a retired Las Vegas police officer, claimed to have helped Tupac fake his own death for $1.5 million. Other claims made by Myers include that $50,000 was used to procure a body double, and about 30 people were also paid to orchestrate his death. He also painted Suge Knight as a main player in the whole scheme. However, it should be noted that a fake ID photo was used to show the former officer on his deathbed. Maybe he followed Tupac's example and faked his own death too.
There have been various Tupac sightings around the globe. Some say he fled to Cuba to live with his aunt, Assata Shakur, an African-American activist and Black Panther. Others say he's in Somalia with rapper Yaki Coffee, who was murdered in New Jersey about 3 months after Tupac's death. The last place cited for where Tupac is hiding is in South Africa, I guess.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I guess the question isn't who killed Tupac, but it is he still alive? And if so, what is he doing?
I don't know. That's
all right.
Why can't he be in Asia?
I guess he would stand out.
Yeah. I think he'd be identified pretty quickly.
But nobody would look for him. That's
right. That's true. Even though I went to Cambodia recently and I can blend in. I can blend in Cambodia.
That's not Asians, though. That's like Southeast Asian.
I know.
Hey. Asian is Asian. Right. Filipinos can claim Asia. Asian. Then
some Filipinos will say they're Asian. Some will say they're Polynesian. But I'm like, you're not Polynesian. No. I think you're Asian.
Yeah,
I know it's just a continent.
It's a political thing, though.
Yeah. It's a big thing. So, wow, what a whirlwind of conspiracies. When we return, we'll put our minds together and figure out what really maybe happened.
If you like the Unofficial Official Story, you'll like Strange Year, Strange History podcast with host Jason Horn. Listen to this trailer and go subscribe.
If you like weird and strange history as much as I do, then I have the podcast for you. I'm Jason Horton, host of Strange Year. Each episode, I break down the strange history and cultural happenings during that year, like 1977, the Wow Signal, 1963, Three Tramps Theory, 1844, the Millerite Movement, 1997, the Phoenix Lights, 1896, the Shortest War, 2004, Benjamin Kyle, 1518, the Dancing Plague, 1985, the Move Bombing, 1972, remote viewing. So to get your weekly weird history fix, pause the podcast you're listening to right now and subscribe to Strange Year wherever you listen to podcasts.
Now that we've discussed the facts, let's give our theories.
First of all, I don't believe Tupac is alive.
Okay.
Nice.
No!
To me, I mean, I understand conspiracy theories, but then I understand using logic also.
Well, you can't use logic and conspiracy at the same time.
Well, I feel you on that, and I'll let you finish. Like, I'm working from home on that game show now, which is wonderful.
Mhm.
But when we were working in person, they called me because I wear these pants that cut off into, like, the shorts that can be converted to pants.
Yeah.
And I have like Ray J, I have a kufi, and it's always like literally sitting on top of my head.
Uh-huh.
Like I'm painting a picture that I don't really care. I don't follow. I go in, I do the job, I leave.
Yeah.
They say I dress homeless chic or whatever. And so I'm not plugged in. I don't gossip or nothing.
Yeah.
But still, in that setting, I know who's sleeping with who.
Yes.
And so what I'm saying is it's hard to keep a secret. Like me being a guy that wasn't looking to know who was sleeping with who, it still trickled down to me.
Yeah.
So these kind of things, the hard part is how do you get that many people to like keep the secret?
Yeah, especially black people. I'm gonna tell you something. Don't say nothing. Yo, I saw Pac. You know he owned the Sloss and Swap Meet, right? Pac owns the Sloss and Swap Meet. Yeah, that's how he making his cheese, man. He ain't even tripping no more. Like, really? I just feel like this. I mean, I get these so-called theories, but what actually makes sense? I mean, you're looking at a guy who was just on the rise and was only going to get bigger, you know, and anybody who's been in this business knows how hard this business can be to reach his level of success.
Right.
You know, and I think he had everything to live for. It's not like he was an artist on his way out, you know, who used to be hot.
Like Elvis or something.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Now that would make more sense, but Tupac was trying to get it, you know? And I think the whole theory of because he was uplifting his people, then you got to listen to Tupac's whole catalog.
Right.
Because, you know, not all of it was, you know, uplifting for the people, but some of the things he did say did resonate in the culture and for positivity and black women and these things. But, you know, these were little things dropped into a body of work that represented something else.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Right. If you fake your own death, right, on that level, you have two options. Reveal that you did so and become hated.
Yeah.
Or be so much in obscurity that you, for all intents and purposes, are dead. So you kill yourself either way, right?
And can I say this?
Yes.
Black people ain't gonna fake their own death because our mortality rate is what it is.
Right.
Anyway.
So here's my theory. If he, let's go with he did fake his own death. He either has to be somewhere where he blends in or where people mind their business. You know what I mean? Like, I know famous people who, they live in certain little pockets and areas. They might live in Malibu.
I was going to say Malibu.
And like, they'll go to their local Starbucks. But everyone in that Starbucks, they already know that, oh, Ryan Gosling comes here. So after 2 times, it's like, oh, that's Ryan Gosling. Then after that, it's just like, it's just Ryan.
Yeah.
And so that's how you avoid the famous treatment. You find local places you go to over and over again, and no one bothers you.
Familiarity.
So with that said, I think he regrets it. I do think he regrets it for all the reasons you said. But I think Tupac faked his own death, and he's living in an outpost in Alaska.
Wait, this is Northern Exposure?
right. So half the people they have no idea who he is.
Yeah.
So change his name. They don't listen to rap.
Yeah.
And a few people that do, they don't like the government. They get it. They're like, we're off the grid too.
Yeah.
And his secret is safe with them. And it's so controlled, so far away. And every now and then when he regrets it, but he's got a situation up there. He's got a girl up there. I don't know what she looks like. Let's say she's native to the area. And whenever he needs money, he just drops an album. And just, he has his friends listen to it to like make sure there's no like he's not talking about PlayStation 6. You know what I mean?
Wait. So what friends would he have be listening to it? His black friends back in the States, or who would he be sending it to? And could they keep that type of secret?
Right. I would say that, you know what? Even though this guy's had his own troubles, I would say Suge. It has to be someone who has something to lose. So Suge kind of, even I think he may be in jail now, but I think he has a lot to lose.
He is in jail.
But whatever he's in jail for, he can be in jail for a lot more, right?
Yeah.
Even though he lost Death Row. So maybe it's not Suge, maybe it's the other co-founder of Death Row, whose name escapes me right now.
Well, you know,
who got Death Row back.
Snoop
owns it now. Yeah. So it could even be Snoop. So he's got one, it may not be Snoop, it may be like, I'm going to tell you who it is, okay. not by name. Whoever the person is who keeps going, because he released, 6 albums posthumously, or how you say that? So whoever keeps finding these new Tupac albums, that's the person that's whoever's like, guys, you won't believe this. I was just looking out I have that box in the attic. Anyway, I found another Tupac album.
I was looking for a heater. You know the little portable heater? I was looking for it, and I found an album, unreleased. Set it right on the envelope. Could you imagine that you open up a box and it just says unreleased album? Like he just has them sitting around like paper plates.
That's funny.
That's a good one. Okay, so here's mine. Okay. So first, let me just say I agree. He's probably not alive because he was very vocal. He was the kind of guy that he couldn't keep his mouth shut. I mean, that's probably got him in trouble sometimes. So it'd be hard for him to stay quiet, but this is my theory. Ready? So it started when he was a child.
Okay.
He was actually Japanese, and he wanted to be cool. So he started wearing blackface.
Can I just stop you 1 second? So Tupac is Japanese, but Cambodians aren't Asian.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Anyway, go.
But he was being picked on because he was Japanese.
Right.
And so he started wearing blackface.
Okay. From a young age.
From a very young age.
Okay.
And then he started rapping.
Koji, are you Japanese by any chance?
Coincidence. This is a coincidence.
All right, go ahead. All right, just needed to know that.
I'm about his age and about his height. I'm just saying. And then he became popular.
Yes.
Right. And then somebody found out about it. He was hooking up with a girl, and then his makeup got smeared. And then she's like threatening, "I'm gonna go out."
Wait a minute, this penis is a little too small.
I was gonna say a little too big.
That's what you call a hacky stereotypical joke.
And then instead of it coming out and being this whole, because obviously blackface hasn't been okay for 20 years or more.
Right.
He just faked his death.
Interesting.
And now that's why I was saying he was in Japan.
Right.
Because he's actually in Japan.
Okay.
Why does this sound like a Scooby-Doo episode? You pull off the mask.
And I would have got away with it.
If it wasn't for you pesky kids. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, his features could be kind of Asian, I guess.
5'8", 165.
Yeah.
That's
but he wasn't in blackface. He was in black body because he had his shirt off all the time.
Yeah. That was also
okay.
Paint, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't hate that theory.
You don't hate it? I despise that theory. Well, I don't even know if I like Koji anymore after that theory.
Well, you know how the Kabuki theater thing. I once hooked up with a chick. She wasn't, but she had so much makeup on. I teased her and said, "You have like Kabuki makeup, like as a play." And then these guys have these dark makeup on, this Japanese thing, and they kind of like narrate the play. Is that right?
Yeah, it's like they don't talk.
Right. So you got that, but also you have there's a certain. I don't understand it because I don't speak Japanese, but there's a certain type of Japanese guy that has a real deep voice sometimes when they talk. Mm-hmm. And what's his name? Who's half Japanese? The comic.
Michael Yo?
No, KT.
KT Chitara, yeah.
He has a great joke because he says in Japanese language, like, when you say something, like, I guess what you're talking about comes at the end. And so that's why he says, that's why when people say something, they always go, someone says something, the other guy always goes, oh, because it's not till the end that they understand what you just said,
Well, it's because Japanese is passive.
Right,
it's a very passive-aggressive language.
I see.
For example, in a lot of American companies get in trouble because when they work with Japanese people, because the Japanese boss will walk in and say, "Where's the copy machine?" Mm-hmm. And a Japanese person would be like, "Oh, here, I'll copy it for you."
Oh, right.
But an American would be like, "It's over there," right?
Right.
Because in Japan, you would never
ask.
You would never ask. So it comes in at the end.
Right.
So like you wouldn't like if you're in my way, you would never like the fuck out of my way. It's like, hey, it would be nice if everyone thought about other people and wouldn't stand right in the middle of the walkway so that that people could walk through.
But see, that can get you beat up in Brooklyn walking around like, hey, would it be nice if you weren't in my fucking way right now? But so anyway, when Tupac rapped, he had that deep voice thing. And that's something to me that seems Japanese to me, just the way that, like, the deep voice thing.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
No, but that's fine. I like that you're trying to get my theory.
You know, like that. Who does that? Like, is it
bad comedians?
Sumo?
Oh, you come here now. But we've watched too much shitty comedy,
even in the movies, but like with the conviction, that deep voice.
Yeah.
I guess all men of all races, when they want to be like felt, they go down to register or whatever.
Yeah.
So that.
Man, I'm gonna whoop your ass. I
Right.
mean, that's, it's gonna come down to be more
I
intimidating.
don't know if I'm conveying it right, but that and that alone is what I think your theory could have some kind of tie.
I appreciate the help.
Yeah.
All right. So we're at the point in the show where we decide we need to pick the unofficial official story, one that will once and for all answer the question. What do you guys think? Which theory do we want to go with?
Well,
Let's go
I
with
mean,
mine. Oh, sorry.
we can't go with. We could, but that he's just dead.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy too? I want to say before we move on, and how people are always saying Tupac is still alive, but no one says that about Biggie. They're like, oh no, he's dead.
Yeah.
Why is that? Wait, why is that?
Because cholesterol is gonna get him anyway. He was gonna die eventually before his time, man. Who killed Big? MC Diabetes.
right. Krispy Kreme, Burger King, they all played a role. They all played their part.
That's the conspiracy. All the fast food restaurants conspired to kill Big.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I think I'd have to hear more of yours, Koji, but I also don't want to go with that he's dead, because then that kind of
I get that.
So I got to go with the Alaska outpost. I think that, as far-fetched as it is, could, and the only thing is too that his mom passed away, and I think his mom would be in on it. I don't know him. I didn't know him, but I don't think anybody's gonna let their
Dwayne,
mom think they're dead. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna have to go with Koji's theory.
What? Yes.
As you went back into the Alaska outpost, I'd rather believe. I would rather believe, as offensive as this is, that a Japanese dude painted himself black and fooled the whole entire inner city in the world.
There is something to be said about that, yeah. Like, if you could have pulled that off. Yeah. That's hilarious.
That'd be it. And then he just takes the makeup off, and then he blends right into the society, and he's alive and well.
Right. And he, when we knew him, for the most part, not in juice, but for the most part, he had a bald head.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe he had
Straight hair.
Straight hair, yeah.
Yeah.
So now, Koji, you're the tiebreaker, and it was your theory, so I don't know.
No, I'm going with these Japanese, of course.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not going to deny
Right.
that it's me.
So you're Tupac.
I'm Tupac. No.
Oh, it gets even deeper. Okay.
Just kidding.
I think we're going with the outpost now. Let me see your abs.
So Tupac is in Japan.
He's in Japan, yeah. Just chilling.
But don't you think he would miss the fanfare, or just he couldn't pull it off?
He's probably doing some Japanese music now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Japanese rap?
Japanese rap. That's like the simplest shit. Like, cause it's like
Everything rhymes. Everything rhymes.
All the same.
Yeah.
And here's another thing, and we've all traveled. Hip hop is huge in Japan.
Yeah.
American hip hop.
Breakdancing, all the elements.
Yeah,
of hip-hop.
I know DJs, American DJs, who go over there all the time and will spend a couple of weeks there just DJing at clubs, making a killing.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is here, from what some of my friends have told me, here when you go to a club to see a DJ, it's still a party and people are dancing. In Japan, they go watch the DJ. Like, they listen to music and they're gathered around and they watch him spin for hours.
That's wild.
That's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
That's like the sneakerheads in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the collecting is different. Like, collecting, like, say you got a Picasso, for example, you want to put it on your wall so everyone walks in and sees it, right?
Yeah.
In Japan, it's the opposite. You never want to show it to anybody. So, like,
really?
the sneakerheads would, like, I did this exhibition with the sneakerheads, and they just put it in the closet, and no one ever sees it. And to convince them to show it is like the hardest thing.
Really?
So it's like
It's like an NFT at that point.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, whereas like if more people see your Picasso, the more valuable it gets, right? And more people know it's like a sports team, right? It's only valuable.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. That's a good question. It's just that's how they collect, and that's how like they just like they're not there to dance. They're there to watch a person do his music.
Yeah.
Right. It's just a show where like the DJ here is more. It's part of something bigger, right? It's like part of a dance or part of it.
I remember doing a show years ago in Guam, and a lot of the Japanese would go to Guam to vacay or to shop or whatever. And I remember going to a club, and it was all Japanese. And man, you would have thought that they just studied MTV and every hip hop video, because they had all the moves, all the dances, and
I had the same experience in Okinawa. Like they were
Okinawa also,
crazy with the breakdancing. Really, I was younger then, so like I could kind of hold my own, but I was like, these guys are next level.
Yeah,
it was next level. Absolutely.
Well, that's why I like sometimes not as much anymore, but back in the day, like 10 years ago, you walk down the like I'd be in Pasadena here, and I'd see some Japanese people wearing like do-rags and like super baggy pants, and like I'd be like, you're gonna get yourself shot. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
And in Japan, and I've seen more than any other Asian country or race or whatever, or Asian nationality, I've seen Japanese men perm their hair to like make it look like a fro type kind of thing, or
all right, you win, Koji. You win. The more and more I'm thinking about it.
But you know what's interesting about that, like the kind of the being able to do all these different things. I mean, one of the reasons we never colonized as a country was we changed so quickly. We were able to adjust. Like, so for example, in 1865, when Commodore Perry comes to Japan and opens it, we went from being like a country with people with swords.
Wait a minute. Even the name Tupac could be translated as Japanese symbols or something.
Yeah.
Probably so.
And they put it down and they translated into English.
Amaru actually is a Japanese word. Right? Tupac Amaru Shakur. But like that's what we were going to...
Tupac-oro.
We were going to name our... Because I wanted to name my kid Tupac, but my wife was against it. And then I wanted to name him Amaru, which is his middle name. And then that means like to have too much in excess in Japanese.
Interesting.
And so it was a weird word. Like for Japanese, it would be weird, but here it would
I have
be
a cousin named Amaru.
Yeah. But in Japan, so they carried, like, they went from being like a country that carried swords and did samurai fighting to a country that was wearing Western clothes within like 3 years. So right away it went from being like, oh, well, I guess we're not doing that anymore.
Right.
And then they started building ships, and people were sitting in chairs, and it went from like super fast. Whereas most countries, the problem with a lot of countries is that they're holding on to things so much. And then the Europeans come, and then they're the ones that change the country, right?
What's crazy about that, that's really interesting, is because you think of Japan as not opening themselves up, but I think they don't open themselves up for like you to do it. Like you're saying, it's like, we'll do it.
Yeah, we don't need to be colonized.
we're gonna do it ourselves. So because the whole point of it, so that they saw what was happening in China, they saw what was happening everywhere. They're like, fuck that, we don't want that. So they need to be a Western. That's why by 1904 they're taking on Russia in a war, because they're like, no, I'm not interested in that. But people forget about Japan. Is before World War II, Japan was seen as a hero to non-European countries. It was the first country they fought in World War I on the Allied side, and they were trying to get colonies. They were trying to get taking over. So they were the first.
Is that when is that pre kind of trying to take over China?
Yeah. So they were seen as like once they took over China, it became bad. But before that, they were seen as the one non-European country that was doing it to the European.
And
then they started acting like Europeans, and that's when everything went crazy. Like when they took over China and Korea and started killing and raping people. Then
and the Philippines too, right?
They took over all of Asia. That's why it's part of being Asian. All right, so that's the official story. We'll take another break, and when we come back, we'll do a lightning round on which celebrities are really dead and which ones are really alive.
Okay, since we now know Tupac is alive and well in Japan, what other celebrities might also be alive?
Well, first off, I like how you have Osama bin Laden as a celebrity.
Well, what would you call him? I'm a terrorist.
Well, I would like to talk about Andy Kaufman really quick. And I feel like he died from like cancer or something. Something kind of serious that
I can't remember what it was.
So he's in all likelihood not alive. But of the list that we have here, I like Andy Kaufman only because he did so much performance art and so many wild stunts that I would love to think that was his final stunt, was just to fake his own death.
Absolutely.
And like just sort of like the longest joke ever. And then like a year from now, he just comes out, here I come to save the day. You know what I mean? So I would say he's alive mainly because I hope he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I thought the same thing when I saw his name. He could definitely be alive. And Steve Jobs could be alive.
Yeah.
Just because the amount of money that he had, if he just wanted to disappear, he can disappear.
Absolutely. Also, they always say Walt Disney has himself frozen somewhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Freezing yourself was if you had fuck you money in 1950 and you're like, how can I live forever?
Yeah.
Let me freeze myself. But that's not the way you do it nowadays.
No.
The way to do it now is you upload your consciousness.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. So Steve Jobs, of all the people we could think of,
can do that.
Here's this 8,000 question questionnaire, right? Because I think if we all answer 8,000 questions, like whoever a close semblance of or proximity of your personality will be captured, and you just upload it and then wait until they figure out something and find a suitable body and download yourself back into it.
Yeah.
Why would he want to live forever? I mean, why would he fake his death? Steve Jobs.
When you have that much money and you've done everything, sometimes, you might want to try something new.
Also, the thing about, the show, what was that show on HBO? So good. Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Great show. And the ending is particularly really, really good. And prophetic as well. So Steve Jobs would fake his own death if he did. Okay, you're a part of this great, great thing, right? Personal computing,
Mm-hmm.
The advancement of all that stuff and the internet and all of that. But that is also what's going to destroy us.
Yeah.
And so maybe you don't want to either take accountability or you don't want to be here for it or, because right now you go out on top as a hero. But 20 years from now, we might be like, all these guys, we might look at them and be like, you guys are the reason
why.
and
somebody like that would see it coming before everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, you know what?
Absolutely, they would
This
see
is
it
all
coming.
going to go to shit in about 10 years.
Because capitalism is can't sustain.
It was crazy. I was watching War Games with Matthew Broderick with my son
I love that
over the
movie.
weekend,
Yeah,
and
me
it was
too.
crazy. It was like we're watching it, and my son's like, "Well, why are they doing that?" I'm like, "Well, back in the day, you had to go to the library and look through cards." He's like, "Why don't you go on the computer?" Or I was like, and then there are like these rooms full of computers. I was like, my cell phone probably has more power than that entire room of computers.
That whole thing. Isn't that wild?
It's
man?
crazy. And then everything was like that. I was like, yeah, this is, you wouldn't have a backdoor password that you could use Joshua to get into a computer.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Would you like to play a game?
Well, here's the I was talking to a guy yesterday, the fallout of all of that. I was in a Starbucks yesterday and I had a show, but I got there super early. So I went to a Starbucks and I ordered and it was packed. A table opened up. I was like, yes. Put my coat on a chair. I'm not going to leave my computer there. I'm from Brooklyn. But I put my coat. This is like, hey, this is my, Went to the bathroom, came out, my tea and my sandwich were ready. While I'm in the bathroom, I hear chairs moving. And I just said, this isn't. I get out. My jacket is now, someone took it off the chair, left it on the table.
Wow.
Took the chair. And so there's a table there with no chairs. I get my Impossible breakfast sandwich and my tea, and I'm mad as shit. And I'm standing there eating my sandwich at the table. I'm standing at a table eating my sandwich.
Oh, man.
And so I go to this other guy who I thought moved it. And so luckily I contained myself because I was like, hey, man, are you using this chair? And I don't know if he didn't hear me or didn't know what the fuck, or he thought I was some kind of crazy person or whatever. He's like, yeah, I'm using it. So I'm like, okay, maybe he's waiting for someone.
Yeah.
And I said to him, my coat was on the chair. He's like, he just shook his head.
Yeah.
He didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. And I was like, I looked at him like, you're lucky, man. 10 years ago, I'd have knocked you the fuck out for this.
Straight up.
But it wasn't him. So thank God I didn't he just was a dude minding his own business. He could have been more informative and more friendly, but he was just minding his own business. Then I look over and there's like these three teeny boppers and they have chairs. So they've moved the chairs. It's just clear across the restaurant. And so the reason why I'm saying all this is that they didn't acknowledge me. They saw me standing there. It was, thank God, they were only there for like 2 minutes, I promise you. And then they left. So you knew you were leaving. They ordered water. They didn't even get anything to drink. They didn't pay for anything. I paid to be here right now, right? And they were like literally 12, 13, 14. And I'm a grown-ass man. If I say something to them, they're females, it's going to be scary and whatever. Because they can be inconsiderate, and then boom, immediately I'm going to play scared.
They're going to be the victim.
The big angry black man or whatever.
Yeah.
So I got the chair back. It's fine. So the reason why I say all of this is, like you're saying, your son was like, why don't you just do that? The ease of everything has made people completely have no empathy, no consideration. Yeah. Because it's not like they're bad people. I don't know these girls. They may not be, it didn't even dawn on them that I can't have this chair.
Yeah.
It's
they
not
operate
like
on a higher level of entitlement than we've ever seen.
Right. And it's not even conscious to them that they're that entitled. So it was just sort of like, this is in my way, I'm going to move it. And this is what the internet has done. It's made everything so instant that you don't even think that you have to wait for anything.
So you know what's funny? A friend of mine recently said, I don't get mad at white people anymore.
Right.
I go, really, why not? He goes, dude, think about being in this country and the sense of entitlement that they have. He goes, so there's certain things I don't snap about and go, oh, it's always been like this for them.
Right.
So they think it's okay. Like we're in New York and he goes, watch this. So we're walking, we turn the corner. It's a bunch of white people standing in the middle of the sidewalk and just standing there. Yeah. Like you would have to go into the street to get around. Because
no bueno.
They just have no gauge of just hey, go around us.
This is why like when a lot of like white people go to other countries where it's not dominated by white people, they feel like all thrown off. Yeah. And I remember
everything doesn't revolve around.
Yeah. And I remember telling them, I'm like, well, this is how I feel all the time in America. And do you understand how like it would feel that I walk into a room, I'm the only one of my kind. Mm-hmm. Right. Not even other people of color, just me. Yeah. And it's just, and they're like, oh, like, but it doesn't recognize. But, like to go to your point, like, I mean, what white replacement theory is this crazy theory that they're being replaced, even though like, I always have to, I'm Asian, so I'm good at math. And I'm like, even when, we're going to become a majority minority, you're still in the lead. You're like 48% white people. Exactly. And when's the last time black people, Latino people, and Asian people work together on anything?
Right. Yeah. for a long period of time.
Yeah, for a long period, other than like.
Right. And the other thing is England, if you go to the UK, right? There's a reason why the pound is still stronger than the dollar, because once you set the wheels in motion, so UK is this, country that's as big as California, and they've conquered the whole world, colonized the whole world. They don't have those colonies as much anymore. Their pound is still stronger than our dollar, because once you own everything, you own it in perpetuity. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter. After the wheels are in motion, you're good unless you really, really flub it up somehow. Yeah. So they're going to be straight. And I just think, but the internet, I think Steve Jobs is like, and you're engaging in slave labor. Yeah. You have nets in factories. People can't. You don't even let your workers kill themselves. Yeah. You have nets.
We have the foresight to know that stuff is about to go wrong, and you had a hand in it, and you can disappear. You can disappear with his.
Right. I'm not saying he did that, but that would be the reason why.
Maybe he goes with Elon Musk to Mars.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, maybe there you go.
And he could afford to do it.
I think it's Princess Diana. I mean,
interesting.
Because I always thought, I mean, even when it happened, I was like, this is such a coincidence. Mm-hmm. She wants to leave the family. She wants to get out of the spotlight.
Leave her kids?
You have to do what you have to do. But she could also tell the kids that she's alive.
Maybe. I like that scenario because, I mean, she co-signed on the girl from Compton. What's her name? The princess.
Markle.
Oh, Meghan Markle?
Yeah, Meghan Markle. Yeah.
I mean, why not?
I mean, they have that.
Maybe she's living in Montecito right now with them.
Right. And here's the reason why it's like the Tupac thing, even though we joke, it's harder for him to have done this. He was on the come up. He didn't have that kind of money where, I mean, he had money, but you literally never have to work again and you're fine. He didn't have that. I don't think he had that kind of money.
No, exactly.
Especially with the deal he made with Death Row. But yeah.
Right. But Princess Di probably did. Yeah, and Steve Jobs did.
And I think the royal family wouldn't mind her not being around. I mean, I think they were tired of her. Like, and she was more popular than Prince Charles. Right. She was more popular than the Queen.
Right.
Yeah. And everyone loved her. So, and she just was like, fuck this, I'm out of here.
There were just too many witnesses with Diana.
Yeah. But what would you miss if you faked? Because I can't imagine not talking to my mom again, unless she was in on it.
Yeah, she could be in on it.
Yeah, I could do it if my mom is in on it. And if I could get, then all my friends, because you can't, you can you can only take like 2 or 3 people with you. You can't like fake your own death and everyone knows you're alive. You know what I mean?
You have a tight circle with that.
But you could be Asian because we all look alike.
That's true.
That's how it works, right? All Asian people look alike. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I'm saying that's true. That's what people think.
Me and Dwayne know better. We've been to the Asian
I once had
country.
a exercise in college where they gave 4 groups. It was when I was an RA. They gave us each a lemon, maybe an orange, but I think it was a lemon. It was like study the lemon. We had the lemon for like 5 minutes, right?
That's a lot of studying.
Yeah, I know. But then give the lemon back. And then they're like, can you pick out your lemon? And we all could. So the point is like, even a lemon, you can't tell. But after 5 minutes with a lemon, you knew this was the lemon I had 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
It was kind of powerful, you know what I mean? In terms of if you think people all look the same, it's just you don't know them.
Yeah, well, you're not familiar. You haven't been around.
I have an exercise that I do on stage when there's Asians in the audience is I know my Asians.
Right.
How racist does that sound? The funny thing about it, they appreciate it because, you know, after you travel to Korea and you travel to China and you travel to Philippines and you travel, you don't look alike to me anymore.
Yeah.
Like I knew you were Japanese the moment I walked in.
Yeah,
you know?
Right.
Well, and Asian itself is a European word.
Exactly.
I mean, like Asians don't call themselves Asian, right? They're Japanese or they're Chinese or they're Korean, right? I mean, that's so it's very interesting.
Great point.
That's why it's really interesting to see like Asian Americans go to Asia and they're like, we're Asian American. They're like, what? Like, what does that mean? Right? No, you're Chinese. You're you're Japanese. Like,
it's just funny. Even in China, you know, they draw a distinction between American Chinese and Chinese. Because there's a big difference.
Oh, yeah. They do that in all Asian countries.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I got my favorite story from Japan is when I was a kid, I would walk on the beach with just like swimwear on, wouldn't say a word, and they would pick me out.
They would know.
They would know I'm American just by the way I walked.
That's crazy.
It's like, it's just a different gait. It's a different like attitude. It's a much more American attitude.
Right.
And I remember mom always telling me, you're Japanese. I go to Japan. I'm like, I'm fucking not Japanese. And then I'm like, well, I'm not American clearly because everyone's calling me fucking Chinese or Jap or whatever.
You know, it's funny because I say this in my act, like there's nothing that makes me feel less Haitian than being around other Haitians.
Interesting.
It's like when you're around, you're like, oh, shit, I was born here. My Creole accent is different. Like there's all these things that when you're from a country, you know, you assimilate to, you adapt to your environment. And it's a difference when you aren't born there.
Well, thank you, Ruben, for coming on with us. Please tell us where people can find you.
Pretty easy. You can find me on Instagram. I am Ruben Paul. Same thing on Twitter, Facebook. Website, rubenpaul.com. That actually I need to update. But other than that, you can find me on all social media. I am Ruben Paul.
Dope.
And then you can catch me performing at comedy clubs everywhere.
Right. And your Laugh Factory show that you do in Hollywood.
Ruby Tuesday, every Tuesday night at the Hollywood Laugh Factory. It's a 7:30 show. And then
it's a dope show.
Yeah, it's a really fun show. I get to have some of the best comics. Dwayne has done it a few times. And you can catch me on tour with George Lopez currently.
Great. And I did want to mention that this episode is written by my intern, Isabel Liang. She's young and didn't know a lot about Tupac, so it was interesting to see what she discovered. So thank you, Isabel, if you're listening.
And thank you all so much for listening. There are 2 million podcasts out there. It's crazy. And we're honored you've chosen ours to listen to. Please check out our website, unofficialofficialstory.com, for our show notes or to hear our past episodes.
And be sure to come back next month to find out the answer to the question, why is Bigfoot kidnapping hikers?
Because they're hiking.
Because they're hiking. Because he can. And by the way, we should mention Jennifer couldn't join us today.
Yes.
She had an emergency, but she will be with us next week.
Yes, so I'm sorry you had to hear so much of our voices. Yeah. She has a melodic voice, but she'll be back with us.
So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you, Ruben.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. This was fun.
Bye, everybody.